4 long years after I first picked up the game, BHVR have finally added my most wanted killer to Dead by Daylight. And honestly, it doesn't even feel real. Every time I boot up the game to see myself standing in front of Freddy's, or see Springtrap peeking around a corner in the menus, I feel like I'm just watching one of those concept videos that I would binge when I was younger. And because of that surreality, in the past few days as I've played the game, I've been remembering the times in the past where my hopes for his addition would spike, where rumours were at an all-time high, and overall, the 4-year journey that led to Springtrap finally making his way into the fog. So today, I wanted to talk about it. Today I'll be going over the times that the community had the most hope for Springtrap's inclusion. Because honestly, after looking back, they were kind of ridiculous. Hindsight is 2020, folks. Anyways, with that being said, let's get straight into what I call the Pinhead Arc, which was the first time I ever thought Springtrap had a chance to join the game. Now, keep in mind, this all started to go down just 1 month after I first picked up the game. So, needless to say, it was quite the introduction to the DBD community. This all started when BHVR began to tweet out some cryptic hints to tease the upcoming Chapter 21 killer. The official Twitter posted what at first glance seemed to be a simple in-game screenshot, but fans quickly noticed that if you look closely, they had snuck in the letter S. You wouldn't think that there was much room for theorizing from such a simple tease, but surprisingly enough, even as far back as his first post, people were convinced that Springtrap was coming. I guess that just shows how high demand has been for the guy over the years. FNAF was voted the most anticipated collaboration for the game after all. Either way, some fans had somehow managed to convince themselves that if you looked extra close at this tiny cluster of pixels, you could see bunny ears poking up in the background. Keep in mind, I'm not trying to throw any shade because, honestly, thinking back, I was probably one of them. From that moment on, in the build-up to the next chapter's reveal, the account continued to post teasers hiding letters. They were spelling something out to us, we just didn't exactly know what yet. There were tons of theories being thrown around at the time, whether it was Pennywise or Candyman, but one of the strongest and loudest was of course that it would be Springtrap. With each new letter they revealed, we were one step closer to fully spelling out his name. Springtrap. Wait, is that an E? Does that spectrogram say hell? We were one step closer to fully spelling out his first teaser line, I am still here. As we got more and more teasers, the argument about who it was that the devs were teasing only got more intense and, frankly, kind of petty. People were making fake leaks, spreading fake tweets from real creators. It was a complete mess. And honestly, kind of hilarious. I mean, seriously, there was a moment in time I was so desperate for Springtrap to come to the game that I believed this. When we finally got closer to the reveal of Chapter 21's killer, we were eventually given a teaser trailer, which is, quite frankly, the closest they could come to telling us the killer without saying it directly. We see an analog TV flashing static, and occasionally flickering to footage of a red flower. A scene almost ripped from the first Hellraiser movie. It seems that no matter how badly some of us hoped otherwise, Chapter 21's killer would be Pinhead. Wait. Static? And what's that number in the corner? That's right. In potentially the worst possible coincidence, the first Hellraiser movie was actually released in 1987. So even after this, some continued to fight for Springtrap's inclusion. I even remember a fake screenshot going around where after heavily editing and flipping the TV screen upside down, people said they could see Springtrap's face in the middle of the flower. Looking back, I'm 90% sure this was a blatant Photoshop job, but we were desperate. As sad as it is though, hopes and delusions alone couldn't change reality, and it was revealed that Chapter 21's killer was Pinhead from the Hellraiser series. Like I said earlier, despite how messy and chaotic this time was to be part of the DBD community, I kind of loved it. The thrill of hunting for different teasers and the constant debates about their true meanings was always nice to keep an eye on, and I kind of wish they'd tease an upcoming chapter like this again. Not that I don't understand why they haven't though. At a certain point, the discussion got so toxic that any and all discussion involving FNAF was banned entirely from the official DBD subreddit. This was eventually reverted, but it really goes to show just how heated things ended up getting in the community. After Pinhead's reveal, thankfully I don't think there was a point where things got that intense again, but that doesn't mean all discussions died down. There were still plenty of times after the chapter that theories about Springtrap began to rise, so let's move on to the next big arc that I can remember. Let me start by saying that I'm calling this the Chucky Arc for simplicity's sake, as that's when the copium was at its peak. In reality, this pretty much covers the 2 years between Pinhead's release and Chucky's reveal, because there were plenty of times that rumours started to spread again. Firstly, right off the heels of Sadako's release as Chapter 23, the DBD mobile Twitter began to post teasers in the style of newspaper headlines. Frankly, I can't even pretend to be surprised that people thought this was Springtrap, just look at it. Even once we were told he was actually coming to the game, we had gotten teasers in the same style. There was also a post that had audio from Larry's Memorial Institute, and not long after, another fake leak appeared claiming that by tampering with the audio, you could hear Springtrap's jump scare sound effect. Little did we know that when he did come to the game, we just get an old man yelling at our faces. To be honest, even all these years later, I have no idea what this was meant to be teasing. I tried looking into it as I brushed up for the script of this video, but I hit a wall. If anyone has any idea what the build-up was actually for, feel free to let me know in the comments. Moving on, the biggest spike in Springtrap rumours during this time came in October, right before DBD's 30th chapter. So what teasers did people have to go off of that made them think the killer could be Springtrap? Absolutely none. As the PTB for chapter 30 approached, behaviour stayed radio silent, so it was left to players' own imaginations to question who the next killer might be. And in another horribly timed coincidence, what else was releasing in October of 2023? That's right, this chapter seemed to line up perfectly with the launch of the FNAF movie, and it only fueled the Springtrap fire further. Whether it were fans desperately theorising or leakers messing around, there was constant questioning whether or not the next killer would be Springtrap. I even remember a tweet from Dweet, who I think is a prominent DBD leaker, saying that they were watching the movie the next chapter is from on the night the FNAF movie released. And finally, on November 7th, we got our only teaser for the killer that would be revealed on November 8th. Many prominent knives from different characters in the game, with a large kitchen knife missing. Springtrap is a character that's been shown to use a knife plenty of times in the series. It's even one of his main weapons now that he is a killer. So no, even this didn't slow down the Springtrap discussion. People soon realised that the teaser looked incredibly similar to a scene from Cult of Chucky, but many still weren't convinced. To be fair, Chucky was a killer that had been discussed for years, and the community were convinced it wouldn't work. I mean, the guy is like 2 feet tall. And yet, to everyone's surprise, November 8th came and revealed that Chucky would be coming as the latest killer. I couldn't even be that disappointed because I love the Chucky movies, and he was the last killer I would have expected. Even still, part of me was a tiny bit let down that my hopes were raised yet again, and I found myself wondering just when he'd finally join the roster, if ever. And 4 years later, here we are. After all this time of hoping, coping, and praying that he'd be added, William Afton has officially entered the fog. So the only question left is, how does he hold up? I won't pretend that in this day and age I'm the biggest FNAF fan in the world. Over the years, my interest in the series slowly dropped, and I've barely kept track post UCN's release. But despite all that, my favourite game in the series was always the third, and Springtrap was always my favourite animatronic. So, considering all that, when it comes to his inclusion in DBD, I think that Behaviour did a fantastic job. The chapter is everything I could have wanted and more. I won't sit here and pretend that it's perfect, because frankly, my time with the release has been a buggy mess, and I still don't exactly know where Springtrap using an axe came from, but honestly, I couldn't care less. Because the most important aspect of the chapter was a complete success in my eyes. Springtrap is fun. I always made Ghostface when playing the game, because Scream is probably my favourite slasher out there. So even all those years back when I wanted Springtrap in the game, I wasn't actually sure how much I'd play him. Now that he's been released though, I think I'll struggle to even go back to playing Ghostface. It's been tough getting into matches as a killer, but every match that I've played has been a great time. His use of both the axe and knife makes for a fun but challenging time against survivors at both short and long range. And even mechanics I find myself using last, like his doors, can be really fun to use once you get used to them. Gameplay aside, I think they nailed pretty much everything they could have with the chapter. 4 years ago, I was certain that Springtrap would fit into DBD perfectly, and it's insanely satisfying to see that I was right. I may not be much of a FNAF fan today, but I grew up with the series, and I couldn't be happier. And I'm not the only one who feels that way. I've got my good friend Kynn to talk a bit about her own perspective as a much bigger fan of modern FNAF than myself, as well as her theory on the potential lore implications that the chapter could hold. So with that, the floor is hers.
When it comes to Dead by Daylight, I'll be honest and say that I haven't exactly played much of it. I've had the game for a while on Epic Games, but only played on and off whenever other friends were doing so too. I say this because while I've been having a blast with the new FNAF collaboration, and have honestly begun playing the game regularly since it released, I'm not exactly a good person to talk about the DBD side of this reveal. I am a FNAF fan, however, which means that I'm the right person to yap about how amazing of a collaboration this is. Not only because of course the killer is sick, but also because it manages to honor the entire franchise with a single character. Or two. They announced that Foxy was coming to the game after I wrote this, so cool, I guess. But yeah, that's all the preamble. Let's actually go into it and explain what I mean by first looking at the lore.
Deep within the abandoned Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, William Afton ran from the ghost of his victims. He frantically put on his beloved Spring Bonnie costume, the disguise he wore while committing his heinous crimes, to hide from the pursuing spirits. But fate had different plans for Afton. Something activated the spring locks within the Spring Bonnie costume. Metal clamped against metal, piercing the murderer and trapping him in his costume. As he screamed, the checkerboard floor rose up to meet him, and everything went black. Thus, Springtrap was born, from the death of a murderer. He awoke to a familiar sound, his body a pillar of agony. The ghosts that had tormented him were gone. The walls surrounding him were decomposing, the floor beneath them falling away in moldy patches. How much time had transpired since the spring locks tore through his body and fixed him within his costume? The urge to kill lingered within him still, the thirst long left unquenched. The sound filled his ears again, children's laughter, were children playing in the kitchen. Springtrap rose to his feet, adjusting to his new body, and marched towards the sound. He picked up speed as he moved. Walking turned to running, he rushed into the kitchen and found nothing. No children, no games, no laughter. Just a swirling mass of black fog enveloping the far wall. Springtrap examined the fog. Curiosity tightened his grip on him. As he stared into the darkness, his distended eyes could see shapes emerge within the fog. Who were they? It didn't matter. They were his victims now. Somehow he knew the hunt could go on forever. All he had to do was step into the fog.
So the first thing I want to immediately point out is when Springtrap gets taken to the entity's realm, that being right after he first wakes up in Fazbear Frights. The dialogue describes Springtrap hearing the sound of children laughing, which as any FNAF 3 player would tell you sounds just like the gameplay of said game, where you use the voice lines of Balloon Boy to attract Springtrap to a different part of the building. With, of course, the main difference here being that in this scenario, it seems like it wasn't the night guard leading him, but the entity instead. Now let's go all the way back to FNAF 3, shall we? One of the weirdest moments in the classic Scott era of FNAF games is the first night of FNAF 3, which just so happens to be the night where Springtrap doesn't appear at all, letting the player get accustomed to the new environment before he springs back to life in night 2. You probably see where I'm going with this, right? It's my personal theory that the retroactive explanation to why Springtrap doesn't appear in the first night of FNAF 3 is because he was busy chasing players around in a much different game. Obviously, there's a chance this wasn't intentional, but if it was, I absolutely love it. It's uncommon for DBD to have any sort of canon impact on the media the characters are taken from, so having FNAF, probably one of the most lore-dense stories in the horror genre, to be the one to break that mold is funny, if not really damn interesting. Another point I want to bring up is how unique the variety of costumes we got for Springtrap is, and how perfect they are as a way to represent the various different types of media that FNAF has been in. The original, of course, is the Springtrap from the classic Scott era of games, with the clown and toxic ones being from the AR mobile game, which is already a pretty good spread of designs, yeah, especially since in my opinion those AR designs are straight up fire, even if the game they are from is, well, not that. Then the Yellow Rabbit, which is very obviously a reference to the FNAF movie, which of course had to be there considering that it was such a box office success and probably the big reason for FNAF being a known title to the mainstream audience nowadays. But my focus honestly goes towards probably what is my favorite FNAF design, Glitch Trap, as it not only of course represents the Steelbolt era of games, having appeared in Help 1 at first, but also being the Mimic. Please don't kill me, lore theorists. I know it's not confirmed, but also, I mean, come on, just look at him. Which is the main antagonist of the new era of games, meaning that with the single collab, Springtrap represents both the main antagonists of the franchise at once. And that's not even me mentioning the mocking of Henry's speech from FNAF Pizza Sim, or the animation references to Springtrap's secret image of him tearing his mask open, or Glitchtrap's iconic hush, and the myriad of other small details that make me absolutely adore what they've done with this character. And trust me, I could go on a much larger tangent on this topic if given the chance. I mean, I haven't even talked about the different descriptions for each of the costumes and perks, and there's a lot here. But it is May's video, and I think I've hoarded quite enough of it already. But don't worry, when it comes to FNAF, just like a certain killer, I'll always be happy to come back. This has been the real Kynn, and totally not a mimic.
So there you have it. As a FNAF fan, it's been a long, messy, and really stupid road to go down as we waited for Springtrap to join the game. But after the 4 years I've waited, he's here. I won't pretend I didn't fall out of playing DBD after a while, but even back then I told myself that if they ever added him, I'd come straight back to the game. And let's just say I've kept my word. Let me know your own thoughts about the chapter in the comments below. Are you as satisfied as we've been, or would you consider it a disappointing launch for the most anticipated killer? This has been Maze Radical, thank you for watching, and I hope that by the time this video goes out the game will actually be playable.